WWE Raw results, winners, live grades, reaction and highlights ahead of Payback. Welcome to Bleacher Report's live coverage of WWE Raw on August 28 in Memphis, Tennessee. The Payback pay-per-view is coming up on Saturday, so this was the go-home episode of Raw heading into the event. As such, WWE spent a lot of time hyping the show. This week's Raw was not without its own highlights, though. Becky Lynch's feud with Trish Stratus continued when she took on Zoe Stark. Bronson Reed took on Tommaso Ciampa, while Chad Gable battled Ludwig Kaiser. We also saw the New Day take on the Viking Raiders in a match that reignited their previous feud. Let's take a look at what happened on Monday's episode of WWE Raw. So now move on to the next match, that is match No. 1 Real World Championship, Damian Priest vs Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn opened the show to a rowdy crowd singing along with his entrance music, but it was cut off by Damian Priest's appearance. Senior Money in the Bank had a clear height and power advantage, but Zayn didn't allow himself to be pushed around. He got in a lot of offense before Priest took over and started dominating. So many of the Judgment Day's matches involve the other members of the group, so it was a nice change of pace to have the Archer of Infamy riding solo for this match. Unfortunately for Zayn, JD McDonagh interfered and cost him the match. Priest was unhappy about it and shoved the Irishman after the match. This allowed Kevin Owens and Zayn to take him out while the Judgment Day member left him to his own devices. This was a good match that left room for a follow-up down the line. The tag title bout at Payback with the Judgment Day is going to be a lot of fun. Top moments of the match. It was a little weird that Owens and the rest of the Judgment Day weren't at ringside, but that was good because it meant there was no interference. Zayn's springboard moonsault is a thing of beauty. So now move on to the next match, that is match No. 2 Real World Championship, The New Day vs Viking Raiders. The Miz came out to LA Knight's theme song dressed like him and gave a promo while doing an impression of the megastar. Once the crowd started getting into it, the A-lister took off the outfit and started ranting about how the crowd will cheer for anything and how anyone can pander. The next match saw Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods take on Eric and Ivar. These two teams have been in the ring together many times, so this was by no means a fresh encounter. Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle watched from the commentary table. Woods and Eric started with a nice exchange. The Vikings took control and isolated Woods for a bit, but it didn't take too long for Kingston to help his partner turn things around. Valhalla was at ringside but didn't have much of an impact on the action. This ended up being a relatively standard tag team match for the most part. The pace was steady and they had good chemistry. The contest evolved into mayhem at ringside when McIntyre and Riddle got involved, and this led to Eric and Ivar hitting Ragnarok for the win. Top moments of the match. The Miz's impression of Knight was perfect. No notes. Woods and Kingston both wore armbands that said Bray. Seth Rollins was shown wearing one that said Wyndham. Woods hit a nice dive out of the ring onto both Vikings. The way McIntyre hit Woods in the face with an office chair was nuts. So now move on to the next match, that is match No. 3 Real World Championship, Chad Gable vs Ludwig Kaiser. Gunther delivered a promo while standing on the announce table. He said he would defend the Intercontinental Championship against Chad Gable again next week, but for now, he has to fight Kaiser. This wasn't the first time we have seen these two lock horns, but it was definitely their best encounter. Everything they did looked as smooth as can be. This match lasted 2 full segments, so they had more than enough time to make this one of the best performances of the night. Unfortunately, it ended due to interference and led to a bigger brawl with Otis and Giovanni Vinci. Top moments of the match. WWE played the Bray Wyatt tribute video before this match. It is such a beautifully done package. Otis is so funny without even saying a word. The way Gable took Kaiser down at the start of the match looked so smooth. Kaiser hit a nice running uppercut that was reminiscent of Cesaro/Claudio Castagnoli. Gable's mouth was bleeding a bit after the commercial break. So now move on to the next match, that is match No. 4 Real World Championship, Bronson Reed vs Tommaso Ciampa. Seth Rollins came to the ring to talk about his upcoming match against Shinsuke Nakamura at Payback and pay tribute to Wyatt. A video package played for the artist while the Visionary was still in the ring. Nakamura ended up attacking Rollins from behind while he was talking and kicked him in the face to knock him out. Ciampa and Reed had their rematch after Rollins cleared the ring, but Reed started the fight early by attacking his opponent during his entrance. The former NXT champion ended up getting the upper hand as the show went to a commercial. Reed is great at working with smaller competitors, and Ciampa is great at working with just about anybody, so they managed to make this a fun encounter with the time they were allotted. The ending is where things fell apart. Ciampa tried to use a crucifix but was unable to keep his body around Reed. So when they went down for the pin, it did not look good at all. Top moments of the match. The kick to the face from Nakamura looked great. Rollins sold it perfectly. Reed's gear being somewhat similar to Bam Bam Bigelow's is appropriate because he moves like him in a lot of ways. Adding the word big to Reed's name is so unnecessary. So now move on to the next match, that is match No. 5 Real World Championship, Becky Lynch vs Zoe Stark. Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio were out after a break to give a promo, but it turned into a fight with Raquel Rodriguez that ended with the Judgment Day members retreating. The main event of the night was the Falls Count Anywhere match between Stark and Lynch. Tiffany Stratton was shown several times watching from the crowd. It took only a couple of minutes for Trish Stratus to make her presence felt by hitting the man with a kendo stick. She continued to get involved, and when Lynch had finally had enough, she chased the Hall of Famer down and beat her with the kendo stick until she ran to the back. Stark and Lynch have not only developed great chemistry as opponents, but they are also both talented performers in their own right. Even though the Trish stuff was a bit much at times, this ended up being an engaging match and a feud that has probably run its course for most fans. After a few table spots, Lynch picked up the victory by hitting the manhandle slam off some production crates through a table. Top moments of the match. There was an awkward landing when Lynch hit Stark with a crossbody from the middle turnbuckle to the floor. Stark almost hit her head on the barricade on the way down but ended up being fine. Stark's springboard dropkick always looks so good. Stratus tried to throw a chair into the ring and ended up hitting Stark completely by mistake. Stark was fine and shook it off, but it was a funny moment. Lynch started crying at the end as she tapped at her armband bearing Bray Wyatt's name. The final word. This was the go-home episode of Raw before Payback, so we all knew it would be full of video packages and interviews, but this edition was a little disingenuous. Only having 5 real matches on a 3-hour show not only feels like a waste of the audience's time for those watching at home, but it also feels like a waste of money for those who paid to see an entire episode of Raw matches. The Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk tributes were touching and a few of the matches did stand out for their quality, but almost every bout ended with some kind of interference or shenanigans. It might not be the worst episode of Raw we have seen, but it was one of the weaker ones in recent memory.